Chris Ladas-Drake, and I'm with Save St. Cloud, and we are sitting down today with Seat 3 Special Elections candidate, Daniel Minckler. And this is our first time getting to meet Daniel and to hear his platform and kind of figure out what he, brings to the table as a candidate. This is also the opportunity that everybody else can get to know a little bit more about the gentleman that everybody's heard about but doesn't, doesn't.
Yeah, who is that guy? So, everybody's wondering.
Yeah.
Maybe not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions though.
No, and that's good. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down with me. It's important to my message that I'm able to do this and I'm able to really get in front of people and give them an opportunity to find out about me. And I think that's something that some people have been waiting to see, and hopefully hopefully my lack of name recognition now will be heavily outweighed by what I have to say. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. Well, I know we spoke a little bit prior to, so I know a little bit more about your background. I know that you are the son of a Navyman.
That's correct.
And so you moved around quite a bit. And I know you said you kind of settled, your father retired in Georgia, Kingsland, Georgia, you said?
That is correct. So he was stationed at Kings Bay, Georgia, which is the southeast corner of Georgia. So if you've ever been driving on I-95 and you pass the border from Florida into Georgia, at least in the 90s before they changed like excise taxes and gas was a lot cheaper there, you probably stopped in Kingsland and got some gas, filled up. But yeah, so he was in the Navy, so I was originally born in Guam, and early on in my life, first 10 years of my life or so, I moved around quite a bit.
Okay.
He did end up retiring in southeast Georgia, and my family ended up settling there as a result of that. So if I was going to call anywhere home, at least for that kind of middle portion of my life, it would have been southeast Georgia. We actually lived in St. Mary's, which is the oldest city in Georgia, the second oldest city in the United States.
Cool.
But it's a very, very small town, very, very small feel.
So now you did mention it's kind of got a similar feel to, it's a little bit smaller than St. Cloud, but you said it's got that similar small town feel as well, though.
Oh, very much so. So if the town that I lived in prior to moving here was Kingsland, Georgia. So Kingsland, Georgia, I would say the closest comparison that I can make to it in Central Florida would be population and sort of the structure of the town with kind of a major interstate going through it would be like Lake Mary. It's about the same size. So Kingsland had a voting population of 17,000. The county as a whole, which covered 3 cities, was a little bit smaller than Osceola County and had a population about the size of St. Cloud's currently. So, so it was not exactly densely populated.
Right. But you also said you had spent some time in Washington, D.C. growing up.
That is correct. So the third place I actually lived in my life, and some of my earliest memories were in Washington, D.C. And one, I would say the most formative memory that I have in D.C. That really propelled me down a pathway into politics and public service in general was I was standing with my father across from the White House, and he was kind of explaining to me, this is what this is what it means to our country, that sort of thing. And there's all this noise, all this commotion, and there's sirens, there's all these little motorcycles with these American flags on it, and I have no idea what's going on. But he explains to me that this is the presidential motorcade passing us. And that just fascinated me. So from a young age, I would read about politics. I'd read about the Founding Fathers. I'd read as much as I could related to what was going on in my backyard, because we formerly lived inside the city limits of Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So it was an interesting place to be, and it really was the pathway that got me into some of the things that I have done in politics.
So that's what kind of stoked your political fire.
100%.
That's fantastic. I mean, and what better place to do it? I mean, where else can you get the real grasp of how politics works other than...
Yeah, right. So I was spoiled as a kid for that. I get to see the Smithsonian's and all the monuments, and now I spoil my kids by just taking them to all the parks. So.
Yes. Yeah.
A little different education, I suppose. But,
definitely.
But yes, it really put me on the pathway of how I proceeded.
Right.
So I did go to high school in Southeast Georgia. When I went off to college, I knew what I was going to study from day one. I was very definitive about that. I was a political science major with a minor in public administration. I thought my pathway was I'm going to go to law school after this, and I'm going to be in the House of Representatives by the time I'm 28. You know, big goals, big desires there. But you know, life is life. So
and it happens.
You know, it took a bit of a turn, and I ended up coming home from college a couple years in with some personal situations, and I ended up back in Kingsland, back in the town I went to high school in, and I ended up starting a career there. So when I came back from college, I came back somewhat abruptly, and I didn't really know, what am I going to do here? And I got linked up with a guy that had a small business in the town of Kingsland, but he was also the former mayor of Kingsland.
Oh, wow.
So the person that connected us said, I think you guys would get along, and we worked together for 10 years, so it worked out really well. But when I sort of went back and was trying to regroup on exactly how the structure of my life was going to go, you know, my path is taken a little bit of a turn here. I got heavily involved in the community. So this is a community where I went to high school. This is a community where people knew me coming back, and they definitely knew my boss. He was politically connected. He was politically connected on a state level. And working for him, it was the second oldest small business in the entire town. So it really allowed me, even though the path of how I thought I was going to get into politics, it didn't go exactly the way I thought it was going to go. It still led me back to it. So in working for him, he certainly introduced me and connected me throughout the state politically as well. And that culminated in not only getting heavily involved with organizations within the town, the Chamber of Commerce. I sat on the board of that. I was the military affairs committee chair for that. So I had direct conversation with the command master chief of the Navy base on a very regular basis. And I enjoyed that because that was somewhat of a tribute to my father. But the point is I got really involved in the community, and that culminated in me being appointed to the Planning Commission of Kingsland, and then ultimately being elected as a city councilman in Kingsland. So it gave me an opportunity to do local politics. And local politics is certainly a different animal everywhere.
That's true.
But Kingsland, having I-95 as this major thoroughfare that cut through it, one of the things that happened in my short time in that position is we had to deal with a lot of development. We had to deal with tax allocation districts, and we had to deal with essentially how we were going to take this town that had been pretty underdeveloped and really pretty small and change it into something that was that looked a lot different. And it gave me some good perspective. And I think just being able to see a municipal budget, being able to really understand what it means to the people of the city who care about their issues to come to the table and be the person that represents them for that. It was a great education, and in a perfect world, that would have propelled me to maybe other positions politically within the state of Georgia. But again, life doesn't always throw you a straight line. So I made a professional decision to relocate to Central Florida in 2015. Go ahead.
So no, I was going to say that you mentioned that when you came here, you were not yet married.
That's correct.
And that you guys came here, you said for professional reasons, and that you drove through the town. And then I'd love for you to tell them how this became home, because it's a cool story.
Yeah. So in my job, I was training with the guy that did my job before me, and when we were driving around, he asked me. So my job involves a lot of driving. So we were riding around in Osceola County, and he asked me. He said, "Where are you going to live?" And at that point, I made a pretty snap decision to come here. So. And it was a big decision because, backing up a minute, I mean, it took me away from all that connectivity that I had within this town. And, I saw it as I was really giving back, I think, in a productive way to the town that sort of raised me, if you will. So I had no perspective on In fact, the only thing I knew of St. Cloud was when they used to run these ads where they had this joint Kissimmee St. Cloud campaign. It was to attract people to come here to, it's a tourism thing is how I perceived it when I was young. But that was the only thing I remembered of St. Cloud from a kid, was that logo of Kissimmee St. Cloud together in the little commercials. And the guy that I was riding with, he said, well, I live in St. Cloud, and let me show you around. So in the process of showing me around, he drove me straight down Florida and 5th. Or excuse me, he drove me, it was Florida and 10th, excuse me. So we cut across there, we go down Florida, we end up at the lakefront, and as he's driving me through, it just, even seeing it for the first time, kind of seeing the canopy of the trees and, seeing this, all these houses look completely different. Yeah. It just felt like home. It felt like home from the very, very beginning. So I was intrigued. So about a week later, my then girlfriend, now wife, she came down with me, and we were trying to see, trying to feel out the market, see where we could get a place. And I said, well, let me take you to this place that the guy I was training with took me. So I took her on the same path. We cut right down Florida there. We end up at the lakefront. We stop at Krabby Bill's. We have lunch for the first of many, quite a few times now. And a couple hours later, we're renting a house down here in the grid. And 6.5 years later, we've been here. And in the process of me being here, so I went from the situation where I was established in a town. I go to a place where I'm very disconnected. I don't really know anyone. And so I sort of internalized a little bit, and rather than being out in the community, I got married. We've had 2 kids together now, and we raised 3 together. So it's been it has become home. It has become a place. We own a house here now. We have a rental property here, and we have we don't see ourselves going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's important because it is true. I have not been here for years and years. I haven't been here my whole life. But I come from a perspective of a small town and what that means. And I hope to bring to the table the perspective of what I have seen here. Because what I've seen here, I mean, even if we look back over the last 5 years, I mean, the makeup of just the area I living, closer to the lakefront and living in the grid and kind of interfacing between downtown and the lakefront, for my experience, I mean, it's very conducive to my young children. It's very, it's very accommodating of, our lifestyle. But over the last 5 years, I've seen the changes. And some of the changes I've seen really heavily mirror what I experienced in a previous political position. So when I made the decision to enter into this race, it really was based on the fact that my foundation is set. I've kind of decided my family is, my son started kindergarten today, and my daughter will be 2 next month. So, we sort of have established ourselves here. And I now want to transition that into giving back to the community. So the community that raised me, it gave me a lot, and I wanted to give back to them. This community has, created my family. And for somebody like me who really has a passion for the political experience and just democracy in general, it really is a good opportunity to put myself in a position to convey that message to people. So you may not know me now, and I hope through the course of this campaign, people will get to know exactly what I'm about and exactly what I intend to do as an elected official. But I think I bring a good perspective that I've sort of been there. I've been there through some of the things I see that are antagonizing people here now.
The growing pains.
I've been through how you have to structure that. And I've been looking for the right pathway to give back to this community.